Welcome everyone to a much anticipated event for Life in Quarantine's Words in Quarantine. So my name is Ella Schriefer and I'm joined by Nelson Schumacher, and we're two of the three founders of Life in Quarantine. And we really couldn't be more delighted to be here with you all today to celebrate the poetic contributions by such an esteemed group of poetic talent. Now, Life in Quarantine, Witnessing Global Pandemic, right, or LIQ as we've come to call it, started back in March of 2020 with this ambitious idea to collect written pandemic experiences of people in their own languages from around the world. And this living archive has grown substantially over the years. Yes, so shockingly years, right, since COVID entered all of our lives. However, Life in Quarantine has really become so much more than just an archive of experiences, and has really morphed into this sort of creative trove of poetry and stories and art and teaching resources and blogs and more. Now, today we are not only celebrating the development, growth, and talent present in our Words in Quarantine section of LIQ, but we're also celebrating the collective team effort that has really made every facet of this site and project possible. We are unbelievably grateful to all the fantastic ideas and hard work that's been put in by all of the many members of our team over the years. It really couldn't have possibly happened without them. Now, while LIQ is no longer taking submissions, it will remain this resource for curious and creative minds, as well as continuing to serve as testament really for how hundreds of us, folks from every continent, bar Antarctica, sadly, experience the turbulent and life-changing first years of COVID-19, expressed in really a myriad of ways, right? Written word, teaching, artistic expression, music, and of course, poetry that we'll be highlighting today. So now I'm going to pass it over to Nelson, who will share just a few more words about really the impressive successes of Life in Quarantine and our recent decision to bring the project to a close, and of course, introduce the incredible literary powerhouse collaborator that we've had the pleasure of working with, Megha Sood. Pass it to you, Nelson.
Oh, thank you, Alice, and thank you to everyone who is present here in the session. This project it started really as a way of us to kind of make sense of what was happening, with the pandemic. Alice, myself, and Fada, our other colleague who started the project with us, we are academics, and we look at this moment as a historical moment that will have a lasting influence, right? And for us, this was a great opportunity to create a way to like a real time archive of what was happening. And it's an opportunity in a way there. If you thought about Black Death, right, in the Middle Ages, we have accounts written about what happened, but they are very selective, right, about the people who could actually leave accounts of what was happening. Not everyone could write, and now it's still true that not everyone can write, but we have scaled that ability and the ability to share, right? So, like, for us, it was just an immense opportunity to do something like this and create something that, although it started with this academic interest, it was not meant for academia, right? It was meant for the public. It was meant for like people who want to understand what's going on outside of their city, outside of their country, right, with other human beings, and kind of get a sense of that. So the project also started with us not having a sense of where it would end, and looking back now in hindsight, right, we have done way more than we set out to do, and you are a huge part of that, the reason why. So when we started thinking about the Words in Quarantine, really, I'll have an anecdote here from undergrad, right? I had a professor in the English department at Portland State University who used to tell me, Nelson, if you want to understand the Middle Ages, you can take a history class, or you can read Chaucer. And if you want to understand what the Middle Ages were like, just read Chaucer, right? So there is something about this, that our writers are so important for us to understand history, understand who we are, right? Um, so when it just made sense for us to bring literature into the archive. And I'll pass the word now to the person who really was absolutely, I mean, the word instrumental doesn't even cover the range of what she has achieved for this project. Megha has been just a complete joy to work with, and she has brought so much to this project. And the fact that you're all gathered here is a result of her unceasing interest and activity. It's just really inspiring to work with people like that. And I also want to thank Natasha, who is one of the many undergrads who have worked on this project with us over the years. To date, we have over 450 stories about life under COVID on the site. We have about 100 authors like you on the site, right? We have involved 40 to 50 people among contributors, collaborators, partners. We have partnered with Stanford undergrads, community college students, community college instructors, right? We have given presentations about this project, and we have engaged with the community in various ways. And this is really thanks to the work of everyone who put in some of their work and dedicated some of their time to us. So now that we're closing the project, I'm just very grateful and very happy to look back at what we were able to do and achieve. And just before I pass on to Megha, you might like to know that there are teachers in community colleges who actually use the website to teach their classes. And so this happened organically. We did not pursue this and necessarily, although we have also established contacts with teachers over time. But it's just really awesome and gratifying to see that our work is being made a use of, right, by the public, and that we have built not only an archive but also a teaching tool. So just want to share my deep gratitude and how happy I am to see this day coming and to be able to say these things today. So pass on to Megha now, and we're gonna get our session going. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Nelson and Ellis, for the kind and the generous introduction. Like I always say, it's like thankful to Sesta Stanford for bringing me on board and supporting and believing me, and for the last 2 years, and making this project and all the other sections of the project an astounding success. And it has been an absolute pleasure and joy to work with you guys and with Farah and Ariana and everybody else. And it's been a great learning and enriching experience for me. It has opened new opportunities for me to connect with people all across the globe in order to act as a collaborator and curator for the project. So I'm very thankful to all the readers who are present here for their contribution to the project, because you are the reason that the archive exists. It's 120 plus authors, and we are here to celebrate the event of completion of the project. So as I always say, what beautiful way it is to celebrate anything other than poetry. So here we are celebrating the event with poetry, and to kickstart the event, I would like to invite the first reader of the event, who is Natasha Huyhn. And Natasha is not only our intern at the LIQ, as Nelson already told you about, and she's also responsible for the day-to-day managing activities and also for uploading the digital submissions. And to give an idea of more about Natasha's writing career, Natasha Huyhn is a mixed race poet and a voice actress residing in Ireland. As a project intern at LIQ, she manages all creative and art-related initiatives. Her poem, The Death of a Dreamer, was published in the well-received anthology, The Best New British and Irish Poets, 2019-21. Natasha's work has been anthologized numerous times, and she's currently working on her first collection of poetry. So first, I would like to say thanks, Natasha, for helping me with this event. You have been a delight to work with. And I'm going to kickstart this poetry event and pass on the virtual mic to Natasha. Natasha, take it away.
So my poem is called Soledad. Um, my mother named me Soledad, the Spanish word for loneliness. I never understood why I belonged to such a foul sound, the S slinking between my teeth. In the same fashion, solitude lurked in a crowded room. Perhaps I was a lonely child, born out of misplaced hope that I could replace what she had lost. I have since learned that a lonely heart cannot sustain another. Even so, I shall care for my little Soledad, nurturing its heavy head when the silence gets too loud, never judging or blaming its sentiment, just sitting quietly by as a familiar companion.
Thanks, Natasha, for reading your poem. And I'm going to be introducing the next reader, who is Usha Akella. Usha Akella has authored 9 books, graduated from the University of Cambridge, and is the founder of Matwala, the South Asian Diaspora Poets Collective and Festival. Matwala's work was featured in Poets and Writers recently, and she hosts a website of curated interviews at www.the-pov.com. Welcome, Usha.
Thank you, Megha. Thank you, Nelson Ellis, Natasha, everyone. Thank you for including me. So my poem is called Reemergence. We retreat and reemerge from our rooms like waves meeting by the shore of the window. This dance of 3 happens daily now, like 3 needles crocheting a new pattern of reality. Simple human actions, eating together, cooking, washing dishes, a new alphabet in an unhurried world of harmony, kinship, and family. We are reconfigured in a lucent house, breathing a cornucopia of light. Limpid walls and tiles seem fluid like water, rippling a chiaroscuro outside. That, the red streak of a cardinal's winged surge, that, the squirrel's serrated scampering on trunks, that, the unhurried drift of a dandelion. Spring too is upon us. This too is reality. The sun's golden bombarding, drenching, suffusing. This beauty is undeniable. A world savaged by light, saved by light, singing with light. Rains baptize the streets, asking us to rise anew. The streets are rivers, cupping reflections of the oaks and cedars. Blue bonnets and Indian paintbrush splatter the streets. Scarlet berries bud like miniature poppies on the dark green, reminiscent of a red whirring virus, leaving shadows of painful stories. This war unfolds as wars have always ravaged the earth. Some mine woe for profit, some simply try to keep bone and skin together. The human mind is rarely pellucid. We understand what we can and mostly move on in acceptance.
Thanks so much, Usha, for your beautiful contribution to our archive. And with the closing line, you have aptly described the way we have felt and we are still feeling because we are still in a pandemic, but we are opening little by little. So thanks so much. And moving on to our next reader, I'd like to welcome Lucinda Clarke. Lucinda Clarke is a poet, publisher, and film producer. She's the founder of the Poetry Matters Project. Clarke is a contributor to View from the Middle of the Road series and the publisher of Poetry Diversified, an anthology of human experience series. When not writing, she can be found dancing tango or meandering around in her garden. She is also the president of Georgia Poetry Society. Welcome, Lucinda, and please read your poem.
Megha, it is an honor to share the stage with you once again. Thank you. Thank you so much for encouraging us to be involved in the project, and to all of you for allowing me to be here to read this evening. I'm sitting in my car here in Georgia. I think it's only maybe 90 degrees. My my husband insisted that I attend the event, you know, technology and all. And so I will get to my reading quickly. I wrote this poem, which is titled Pre-COVID Rant, right when the epidemic was really getting started. And when I read it today to prepare for this reading, I was just stunned at how differently I feel now. Pre-COVID rant. When global warming, school gun violence, and generational responsibility was front and center. Dear young people, a new day dawns. You dress and out you go to protest. You post on social media to the fickle TikTok followers and suspect likes, blaming it all on your elders. Two things. Time is passing. If not careful, you will wake up one morning and find you are now the elders. Your elders gone. No legacies in wait. No home planet. Your anger justified. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Lucinda. And thanks so much for curating and for collaborating and for contributing to our project. The next reader is Gina Duran. And Gina Duran founded I Hope Collective, which provides workshops for marginalized youth. She was editor of Boundless 2022, VIPF, which is Valley International Poetry Festival, and hosts the collective on KQBH. Her book, And So the Wind Was Born, with Flower Song Press, is the part of her story mixed tape collection at the Autry Museum. Welcome, Gina, and please grace us with your poem.
Thank you. My piece is Stolen Wind. Thick sepia stained air split onto the sun of the color of burnt orange, seeping through clouds of billowing smoke. I wandered out to the raining ash and cooled ember puddles on my bare toes to attempt to play in my garden and talk to my plants. Normally, the lavender and sage swim in the scent of redwood chips, but today the stale sun ferments under the sapper of soot and seasons the soil with the flavors of Redlands, California. Not because the sun was too hot, it rotted, withered, and singed the fruits of our labors, or even because some careless camper forgot that campfires are hazardous in the arid summer heat. No, a puff of blue shot out to reveal the news of some child's genitalia, a child who will forever remember that their family's repugnance destroyed 20,000 acres of wildlife. And they weren't the first. Why? Ignorance and hate are burning down the country with their constructs: gender, sexuality, xenophobia, racism. Breonna Taylor was murdered in her sleep and no one did a thing. Her wind was stolen. The police officer was punished for shooting a bullet through a wall. The wall received restitution. It will rest in peace. It was probably white. George Floyd's last words were, "I can't breathe," while his wind was crushed by racist blue life. I have yet to meet a blue person, but I hear their lives matter every time a Black person is murdered by one. White supremacists, militia, and anti-vaxxers stood with shotguns in red, white, and blue. The country reopened. Ahmaud Arbery was chased, beaten, and gunned down, never to feel the breath of the sun again. The raging fire scorched the earth because Black football players can't kneel during the anthem. The Navajo are suffocating from COVID-19, their lungs deprived of air for their ancestors who breathed as they walked before the soil was colonized. Brown and Black bodies are gathered in a pile, hung in trees, sex trafficked, stolen. But soon, no one will suffer in cages or lie on the streets and their broken vessels of bones. The choice of life has been cut from the bodies of non-white women, forced sterilization, eugenics, genocide. Genocide is the fire ignited at the parties of racists. Dead people don't celebrate gender reveal parties, and queer and trans people celebrate coming out after they shed their forced gender roles. When I see the slinky swirling movements of the aurora borealis dissolving and transforming like watercolor on a black canvas sky, I think how beautiful it must be to be without borders. How beautiful it must be to exist in an electromagnetic pool, becoming one with the universe and the earth, where all the colors exist in a symphony of light. Thank you.
So the next poet we have in the reading series is David A. Romero. David A. Romero is a Mexican-American spoken word artist from Diamond Bar. C.A. Romero is the author of My Name is Romero from Flower Song Press, a big book reviewed by Gustavo Arnello, Curtis Marez, and Ulises Bella. Romero has appeared at over 75 colleges and universities in 33 states in the USA. Take it away, David.
Washes us away. History is a river, indifferent to our names. Our lives, caught in its current, it washes us away. Bev, black hair and auburn eyes, pale skin, half Caucasian by way of an estranged father, half Vietnamese by way of single mother and refugee grandparents. My father was a Vietnam veteran, US Army, Artillery Division, loud booms and empty shells over lush fields and mountains. My siblings saw it as an act of rebellion to be dating Bev, because even in a city that is majority Asian, some people see Charlie everywhere, equate immigrant with enemy, don't understand there are multiple sides to every conflict. And who were her grandparents? Nationalists, loyalists, farmers, landowners, the people the Viet Cong accused of exploiting their own people. Bev told me a story of how when she was a little girl on a family trip to Vietnam, on a rainy day, she stood in front of a bronze statue of Ho Chi Minh and flicked it off with both hands, yelling, "You ruined my country." On dusty afternoons in Chihuahua, Mexico, my great-grandmother would put my grandmother into a laundry basket, cramp her limbs inside the weave or burlap to hide her away from soldiers during the Mexican Revolution. My grandmother married a hotel owner. They fled to El Paso. My great uncle left Mexico with them to avoid fighting in the Mexican Revolution. Later, he left the US to avoid fighting in World War I. Refugees can come from multiple sides of every conflict, and whether their story is epic, tragic, or somewhat farcical often depends on who's telling the story. I didn't date Bev because her grandparents supported Ngo Dinh Diem, or I support Ho Chi Minh. I dated Bev because of the punch of her jokes, the fullness of her laugh, the comfortable weight of her body on mine, a body once exposed, black hair and auburn eyes, pale skin in the open air as I laid on a blanket in a rain gutter, shaded by pines on a cliff overlooking the 57.
The imagery in this poem is absolutely beautiful. I remember the first time I read it, I just got so emotional, and yeah, it's beautiful.
Thank you so much.
So the next poem we have is, oh yeah, no, yeah. So the next poem we have is Matsurigio. And Matsurigio is a poet that has appeared on C-SPAN, the Los Angeles Times, Canadian Broadcast Corporation. He has spoken in 6 countries and 3 continents. He is the author of Mowing Leaves of Grass, Flower Song Press 2019, and City on the Second Floor, Flower Song Press 2022. Take it away, Matt.
All right, thank you. So this is the poem, and I want to thank everyone involved in the project, and thank particularly Megha for putting all this together. All right, this is the poem. The U.S. The U.S. has too many yachts, not enough beds, too many tanks, not enough masks, no supply, all demand the U.S. has. Too many loopholes, not enough homes, too many billionaires, not enough ventilators, too much private sector, no public infrastructure to speak of, too many tax cuts, not enough gloves, far too much to cover up. The richest nation on earth just was designed to be unending, unbending, production line, war, famine, disease.
I love that. Sorry about that. Can you hear me?
Yeah, no, okay.
Okay, perfect. Sorry about that. I love the poem, Matt. The imagery is just so strong, and it's just kind of like being bombarded by every direction, in every direction. Okay, so the next quote we have is Danny Schott. Danny Schott's works was published in 2018 by Cavan Carey Press. Danny is currently an associate editor of A Gathering of the Tribes online. He was featured on the television show State of the Arts, New Jersey in July 2018. Danny lives in Hoboken, New Jersey, home of Frank Sinatra and baseball, where he is poet in residence of the Hoboken Historical Museum.
Thank you, Natasha, and thank you everyone involved in this project, particularly Megha, who invited me to be part of this. This poem that I'm going to read was written, I think, a year into the pandemic, probably maybe even around this time of year, I'm not sure. Anyway, to the poem. Languish are 3 moods in 3 hours. 1, sometimes you don't want to go out. What's there to do, really? There are only 2 roads out of town, and your feet know them by heart. You've visited the stores on the avenue repeatedly and worry the help will think you have no life, which is true, but you prefer they not come to that conclusion yet. Your car is tired of driving to the same places, the supermarket, Home Depot, your sister's group home. The dogs on the street don't acknowledge your existence. The geese and goslings are not scared of you, and neither is that gang of boys riding chop bikes past without regard. Almost all relationships have become long-distance affairs, and we know what happens to them. You gaze at everyone and everything and are somewhat amazed. 2, funerals are not that important. You've curated your funeral the past 30 years down to the set list, the guest list, and who gets to read a poem. What's important is the sense of loss felt by those you've left behind. Your romantic heart beating what ifs, should haves, and why nots. You have finally come to understand nobody's as happy as they are on Facebook. Nobody's as angry as they are on Twitter. Nobody's as beautiful as they are on Instagram. Everyone as desperate as they seem. 3, you don't ask for much. A walk through Central Park on a sunny day, a bottle of wine with friends at an outdoor cafe, Jacob deGrom blazing heat against the Braves, orchestra seats for a new Tom Stoppard play, new pathways of thought as you turn gray, fresh declarations of love graffitied on the Palisades, this goddamn imposter syndrome to fade away, recognizing the bewildered smile on a lost friend's face. Thank you.
The comedic element in this is just so superb. And I remember I mentioned to you, Danny, actually about imposter syndrome. I just couldn't believe, I was just so astounded that someone else knew about it. And yeah, overall, a great job. And thank you for sharing that. Okay, the next reader is Barry Wallenstein. So he is the author of 10 collections of poetry, the most recent being It's About Time 2022. He has made 9 recordings of his poetry with jazz, the most recent being Lisbon Sunset 2018 and Lisbon Sunrise 2022. Barry is Emeritus Professor of Literature and Creative Writing at CUNY. Take it away, Barry.
Thank you very much, Natasha. Thanks for the link. And Megha, it's a pleasure to see you. And so this is from a series of poems I wrote 6 months into the pandemic, called COVID Goes A-Weeding. First, I removed the elders, then the halt and the lame, then those in tents or huts, favelas, shanties, slums. I know my way around. And when the pruning's done, I'll vanish for a while, smile in my corner, and allow the players into their games. But then I'll return to do my duty, to winnow the population, separate the mighty from the less lucky. There are still the young blades who can't imagine my blades, the brave teens, toddlers in the pink. My clipping shears go snip, snip, plink. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Barry. The onomatopoeias in that is wonderful. It really adds and complements to the overall poem. Okay, so moving on to our last but not least poet is our very own literary partner, Megha Sood. So she is an award-winning Asian American poet, editor, and literary activist from New Jersey, USA. She is a literary partner with Life in Quarantine, Stanford University, author of chapbook My Body Is Not an Apology, Finishing Line Press 2021, and full length My Body Lives Like a Threat, Flower Song Press 2022. Take it away, Megha.
Thanks so much, Natasha, for introducing everyone and for being such a delight to work with you in on this project. And I'm reading my poem, one of the poems which is part of the archive. It's called Looking Outside, and I wrote it like 2 months into the pandemic. It's called Looking Outside. Looking outside at the empty streets and the hallowed lanes, stripped of the faces and the laughter, the cheers dying in the fading noise, there is more to this silence than the darkness stuck in the black teeth of the night. The thrumming of the lone harp wire falling on the empty ears, the rolling of the subways bouncing off the empty walls. Silence screams the loudest, cleaving the hunger in our souls, the pixelated appearance of the gentle soft faces on the screen, a metaphor for social company. A replacement for warm breaths on the back of my neck for that phantom apricity. The waves throbbing and breaking on the empty shores return half-hearted to the places, not baptized by the fleeting touch of the soft palms, baby fat legs dipped for mere excitement. Giggles lost in the pulverized sands as the barren beach calls out for mercy. This deafening silence is no longer pristine and pure. Social distancing is the pure sustenance we all are craving these days. We now look with our parched eyes to foil the gaps in our sight, which we slowly brought on ourselves, living in this orphan moment as the corrupt architect of this empty world. Thanks everyone for listening and being the last reader of the event. And as the event comes to an end, I'd like to take this moment to express my gratitude towards SESTA Stanford, the project managers who are involved in the project, and the entire team at Stanford for making this possible and making this project an astounding success, as Nelson already mentioned in the opening. And I never realized that after I've been involved in the project which started just like as a personal curation of like personal stories of people all across the globe during the pandemic, will grow into a archive which not only curates the writers across the globe, but also the underrepresented community, just such as prison and as mutual aids, the doctors and the frontliners. So I think on behalf of SESTA Stanford, we can confidently say that we have created a very valuable resource, which can be used by the historians, by the teachers, by educators and institutions and literary organizations across the globe, for future. And I'll also like to thank all the readers who are present today and the 120 authors who are part of the Words in Quarantine, who believed in our project and contributed to the project, thus making it a success. And before I give control back to Nelson, I want to say thanks so much for believing in me and making me part of this project. Thanks to you, to Farah, to Alice, and also that I personally believe that the beauty of the project lies in its diversity and its inclusivity. And the way and that feeling of the interconnectedness that we get by reading each other's stories during the quarantine, that the feeling of solidarity which we crave feverishly during the moments of the isolated moments of the pandemic. So I think that's what brought us together. And we were able to carry this project 2 years into the pandemic when everything was so difficult and survival was the only thing we were clinging on. So thanks again for making me part of this project. And back to you, Nelson.
Well, thank you, Megha, and very, very well put. I'm incredibly proud of what we've been able to achieve as really a community resource. And even looking at the room today, right? It's inclusive, right? It represents. In many ways, it represents what this country is all about. I'm an immigrant myself, and I'm just very happy. At the end, it's good to start something and see through it and put in, bring it to a close, a completion. But I think we built something of value.
Are so grateful for all of your participation. And again, just another shout out to Megha for really making Words in Quarantine such an incredible aspect of our site and this project. I think you say it best when we think of inclusivity and solidarity. And these are things with the pandemic that we need to remember and carry with us, because things are far from over, right? Sure, things are opening up, but we're, in ebbs and flows. And I think, it's the words and the literature and the poetry that's going to get us through to the other side. So thank you all so much for joining us. It's just been an absolute pleasure hearing from all of you today. And we wish you, health and happiness as we move forth and forge onward.
Thank you.
Yes,
thank
indeed.
you, Ellis. Thank you, Nelson.
No, you're more than welcome, and thank you, seriously. Thank you, all of you. One thing that struck me that was very special, I think, while I was listening to the readings, is like how much of a panel of the last 2 years, right? This room produced, right? We have this picture of a historical time, like with different voices and different perspectives, but imagine the value of this for people who want to understand what this was all about, right? And one day you might have to explain to your kids, right, or your grandchildren, right? And this is something that we created together, and really your contributions are the most valuable aspect of this, right? So thank you very much, and we'll follow up with with more information, the links and all this. We're gonna have to do some editing with the video, but share it away, and make sure that people know about it. And I think there's a lot of value, like even pedagogical value, in sharing this, and I would be very happy to know that people actually are looking at the site this way too, as a resource to learn about what the years of COVID have been like. What are the what is the vibe of America, right, in during those days are. And I think the poetry captures this in some ways actually even better than some of the stories that we've collected. It's pretty amazing to listen to you reading, right? And that aspect comes through. So thank you very much. Matt, Lucinda, Natasha, Barry, David, Gina, Danny, Usha, and Megha. I mean, thank you very much. We really appreciate you.
And just like Nelson said that, though the project is like closing, but the website is going to be still be up as a reference, and you can read the works of the fellow contributors, read the personal stories of people across the globe, and they are in their original language and translated into English. And you can share and spread the word about this website as far as possible. And that's the only request we can make. And thanks again to everyone who gave their time, energy, and artistic contribution to this project, to this historical project. And it's been nothing but an absolute pleasure with everyone to work on this. So thanks, everyone.